Somewhere, right now, a person is signing a 30-year mortgage while genuinely believing they just made the smartest financial decision of their life, purely because a family member once told them renting is throwing money away. And somewhere else, right now, a person is renewing a lease while genuinely believing they're being financially responsible by waiting for the right time, without ever actually running the math on what that waiting is costing them. Both of them are operating on inherited belief, not on numbers. And that's exactly the problem with this entire debate. Renting versus buying has turned into a cultural argument, a generational argument, sometimes even a moral argument. When underneath all of that noise, it's actually one of the most calculable financial decisions a person will ever make in their life. So today, we're setting the opinions aside completely and walking through the real math, the number most people never actually run, using current, real data, not decades-old advice your parents gave you in a completely different interest rate environment. Let's start with the part almost nobody account for honestly. What buying a home actually costs before you've moved in a single box. There's the down payment itself, typically somewhere between 3% and 20% of the purchase price. Then closing costs, another 2% to 5% on top of that. Then if your down payment is under 20%, private mortgage insurance gets added to your monthly payment, often somewhere between $100 and $300 a month, purely as a fee for not putting more down. None of that money buys you a single brick of the house. It's the cost of admission. And here's the part that surprises almost everyone the first time they see it. In the first 5 years of standard 30-year mortgage, roughly 70% to 80% of every single payment goes toward interest, not toward actually owning more of the home. You can make 5 years of on-time payments and still own only a small sliver of the property outright. The math is deliberately front-loaded that way. The bank gets paid first and equity comes later. Now let's talk about the number that's completely changed this entire equation over the past few years, the mortgage rate itself. Back when rates sat near 3%, the monthly principal and interest payment on a $400,000 home was around $1,686. At today's rates, hovering between roughly 6% and 7%, that exact same home costs about $2,528 a month, a difference of over $800 every single month for the identical house, purely because of when you happen to borrow the money. That single shift is the reason the entire national conversation around renting versus buying has changed so dramatically in such a short period of time. How do you actually compare renting and buying with real numbers instead of vibes? Financial analysts use something called the price-to-rent ratio. You take the price of a home and divide it by what a comparable property would rent for annually. Generally, a ratio under 15 favors buying. A ratio over 20 favors renting. Anywhere in between is genuinely a toss-up that depends on your personal situation. Right now, the national price-to-rent ratio in the U.S. sits well above that upper threshold, significantly above its long-run historical average. Translated into plain English, on a national level, renting is currently the mathematically cheaper monthly option in most major markets. But, and this is critical, that number swings wildly by location. In some expensive coastal metros, the price-to-rent ratio sits above 50, meaning renting can save someone literally thousands of dollars a month compared to buying the equivalent home. In other, more affordable metro areas, the ratio sits closer to 15 or below, tilting the math firmly back toward buying. There is no single national answer to this question. There's only your specific ratio in your specific zip code. Now here's the piece almost every just buy a house conversation leaves out entirely: opportunity cost. If you rent instead of buying, that down payment money doesn't have to just sit doing nothing. It could be invested instead. Real modeling on this shows that a renter who takes their would-be down payment and invests it at a historically reasonable 7% annual return can build over $63,000 in portfolio value in just 5 years. Money that, in the buying scenario, would instead be sitting frozen as home equity, often growing more slowly, especially in flatter housing markets. This is the piece that breaks the old, simple assumption that renting is always wasted money and buying is always building wealth. Both paths can build wealth. They just build it through completely different mechanisms. One through home equity and appreciation, the other through investment returns on the capital you didn't tie up in a down payment. So then, when does buying actually win? The data is fairly consistent on this across multiple current analyses. The break-even point, where owning finally becomes cheaper than renting once you account for all the upfront costs, typically falls somewhere between 5 and 14 years, depending on your specific market, your mortgage rate, and local price appreciation. In affordable markets with strong appreciation, that break-even can arrive in as little as 3 to 5 years. In expensive, slower appreciating markets, it can stretch out past a decade. The practical rule underneath all of this, if you're not confident you'll stay in the same home for at least 5 to 7 years, the math overwhelmingly favors renting. The upfront transaction costs alone need that much time just to be recovered. And ownership brings its own ongoing costs that renters simply never see on their bill. Annual hidden expenses, maintenance, insurance, property taxes, average close to $16,000 a year on top of the mortgage itself, according to recent housing cost analyses. Roofs fail. Water heaters die at the worst possible moment. None of that shows up in the advertised monthly payment, and all of it needs to be part of any honest comparison. But renting has a cost that's easy to underestimate too, and it's not a one-time expense. It's a moving target. Rents have been rising steadily in most markets, typically in the range of 3% to 5% a year, with no strong sign of reversing. A fixed-rate mortgage, once locked in, stays exactly the same for 30 years regardless of what happens to the housing market around it. The renter's monthly cost is the more flexible option today and the less predictable one over a decade. The buyer's monthly cost is the more rigid option today and the more predictable one over a decade. Neither of those is automatically the better choice. It depends entirely on how much you personally value flexibility versus certainty. Now let's zoom out to something almost nobody brings into this conversation, and it completely reframes the entire American dream narrative around owning a home. This isn't actually a universal global value. It's a cultural one, and it varies enormously by country. In the United States, the homeownership rate currently sits at about 65%. That sounds high until you compare it globally. In Romania, homeownership sits above 95%. In China, it's around 96%. Kazakhstan sits near 98%, largely a legacy of post-Soviet housing privatization. Meanwhile, in Germany, one of the wealthiest, most economically stable countries on Earth, the homeownership rate is only about 48%. In Switzerland, arguably one of the highest standards of living anywhere in the world, it's just 42%. Sit with that contrast for a second. Some of the richest, most financially secure populations on the planet rent at far higher rates than the United States does. Not because they can't afford to buy, but because their housing markets, tenant protections, and cultural norms simply never built the same mythology around ownership that exists in American culture. Meanwhile, some of the highest ownership countries in the world got there largely through historical accident. Mass privatization of previously state-owned housing after the fall of communism. Not because renting was proven financially inferior. The takeaway isn't that owning is wrong or that renting is superior. It's that the emotional certainty so many people carry into this decision, the idea that buying is simply, obviously, universally the responsible adult choice, isn't backed by global evidence at all. It's a regionally specific belief, dressed up as a universal financial LWS. Oh, here's the honest, unglamorous conclusion, because this topic deserves one instead of a dramatic verdict. Buying tends to win financially when you're confident you'll stay put for close to a decade, when your local price-to-rent ratio sits closer to 15 than 20, and when you have the stability to absorb the unpredictable maintenance costs that come with ownership. Renting tends to win financially when your timeline is uncertain, when your local price-to-rent ratio is high, and, critically, only if you're actually disciplined enough to invest the difference instead of simply spending it. That last condition is the one that quietly decides this entire debate for most people, and it has nothing to do with the housing market at all. It has to do with whether you're the kind of person who will genuinely invest the money you save by renting, or the kind of person who needs the forced structure of a mortgage payment to build any equity at all. Be honest with yourself about which one you actually are, because the math in this video only works in your favor if you follow through on your half of it. Tell me where you actually land in the comments. Are you buying, renting, or genuinely torn between the two right now? And if you're renting specifically to invest the difference, I want to know that too. That's the group this video was really made for. That if this gave you a clearer, more honest framework than renting is throwing money away, subscribe, because next week we're building out the actual break-even calculation step by step, so you can run your own specific numbers instead of relying on national averages that may not apply to you at all. See you in the next one.